courage, adventure, individuality, forgiveness. These are just a few of the essential elements of life, according to Nia Peeples. The actress, singer, songwriter, choreographer, and TV host has gained much expertise over 3 decades in showbiz. I'm Justin Kantor for Blog Talk Radio. Hey Nia, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. So it's kind of exciting preparing for this interview because your work has covered such a variety of genres, from the music and choreographing to doing drama, some action, and now with the elements of life, kind of delving into a whole new facet. So you're of Filipino and Scottish heritage, is that correct?
Well, that's 2 of the many.
Okay, 2 of the many. Okay, what are the others?
Right. Well, my mother is actually French, Filipino, German, and Spanish.
Okay.
And her parents are both from the Philippines, each of them being half Filipino, one half German, one half... Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And my father is Scottish, Irish, English, Native Indian.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, he's from the South, yeah.
So I think everything with you is pretty diverse, and maybe that explains it. Were there certain of those cultures that you think had a profound impact on your growing up, or was it kind of...
No, I really have to say that both my parents kind of created their own world. They both were people who really thought outside the box. They're an interesting couple because they were very conservative in some ways, and yet really thought outside the box. My dad came from the South, so everything was yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. And yet he married a woman of color at a time when it was illegal for them to even hold hands in most states.
Wow.
And they had a wonderful relationship. It wasn't like one of those mail-order bride things.
Yeah.
It was a real marriage. And so because they did that, and they did it at such a young age. I mean, my parents were 19 and 20.
Wow. Okay. So,
when they got married.
So they had a lot of courage.
They had a lot of courage.
Okay, taking a little bit over to elements of life, because one of the things that you say with this company is that that in our lives it shouldn't be so much about the search for perfection, but I was wondering, like, growing up in Hollywood in that area and being in there in such a young age, which has a reputation for, like, kind of living up to the mode of perfection. Did you feel a lot of pressure growing up and to be perfect, quote?
I had my own kind of pressure that I put on myself, and that didn't necessarily have to be, it wasn't due to living in Hollywood or near Hollywood. Because when you're young, your world is really only as big as the few blocks around your house and your school. You don't,
That's true.
You're not looking at Hollywood as much. And it's very different today because the media is just, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Out of control.
But it wasn't that, it's completely out of control. And it wasn't that way when I was growing up. So I had my own pressures. I mean, I was a very, very shy young lady, to the point of tears. My parents were really worried that I would never survive in the world because if someone looked at me and I thought they were giving me a dirty look, I would burst into tears. I was so sensitive.
Wow, yeah. I can relate to that stuff. I was a sensitive child, too.
But my dad pushed me into choir because he knew that I loved to sing, but it was only like in the closet, in the shower.
Oh, wow, okay.
So he said, you've got to join the choir.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about the kind of severe shyness you have, because from what I've read, you ended up being very active in high school in a diverse range of extracurricular activities. From what I've read, ranging from tumbling to student government to marching band. So is that accurate? And if so, was it something where, like, once you got the bug, like by doing the choir, you just said, I'm going to go all out and, do
No, listen, really what it was a place for me to hide. Because the busier I could be, and I found out that I was really good at all these things, like, it became a part of my identity to be an overachiever.
Okay.
But B, it also kept me so busy, I didn't have to socialize with other people.
Oh, interesting.
I had to deal with them, and I did well, but it was always around a subject. We were always trying to get someplace or achieve something.
Right.
But just to sit and chit-chat or whatever that is, people, back then it was just, at that age, there's a lot of gossip. I didn't have to engage in any of that.
One thing I was really curious about, because something that I've watched in more recent years, like through old VHS tapes and even a DVD, was the music shop where you played a character named Darcy. So, like, how did that come about? Because that was like your first TV series, right?
Oh, that was really funny, actually, because I went to school at UCLA. I was on a scholarship there, not for music or anything in particular. It was an alumni scholarship for all-around students.
Okay.
So all that overachieving did get me through college.
That's cool.
It got me back.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I met a girl who was in the original Broadway cast of Annie.
Okay.
And her name was Robin Finn. She played, I think, Pepper.
Okay.
Pepper Jordan. And so we got to know each other there. And she, being from New York, did not have a driver's license and couldn't drive because they take the subway everywhere.
Yeah.
So she had a fitting for a children's series that she was doing, and she asked if I would drive her. So I did. And when I drove her and I walked into the room, they said, "Oh my God, she's so cute!" And they said, "Do you sing?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "We'd love for you to come audition to play a Siamese cat in one of our little children's series." So I know. So then they said, "Well, do you act?" And I just kind of went, "Well, I don't know. How much does it pay?" Because I'm kind of a broke college student right now.
Oh yeah.
And the long story short is I wound up going in and doing a monologue for them and giving them a tape because I had done a lot of singing, so I had a demo tape. Mm-hmm. And they ended up hiring me not as a Siamese cat for one of the episodes, but as Darcy for their next children's episode.
And that was actually with you on their Benny Medina, who the future record exec at the time, right?
That's right. Oh my gosh. Well, you've done some digging. The last time I saw Benny, I just had to rip him about that because it was hysterical.
Oh, it is.
He was so funny. You know, he's ultra cool man now.
I know.
But,
I've seen recent pictures of him. That's why I was like, is this really the same guy? You know, it's just hard to believe.
Oh yeah. That was a starving artist, Benny Medina, back then, trying to, schmooze his way onto anything, even back then. But he played the bass player in our little band.
What you're doing now with Elements of Life. So, because obviously you've had a lot of different experiences in the business. So who and what were some of the factors maybe that shaped this company coming into life?
I have to say, I don't even call Elements of Life a company.
Okay.
I call it's a philosophy.
Okay.
And really it has more to do with my upbringing than anything else. I've been through a lot of incarnations, and I've been through a lot of different career moves, and I've met some very interesting people, from the wealthiest of the wealthy to the poorest of the poor. Mm-hmm. And I've just worked with some very creative people, top-of-the-line business people. I've had so many various experiences, but everything was kind of the same to me. Mm-hmm. Because I was so grounded in certain beliefs. Mm-hmm. Throughout my career, people have come and they've asked me to, write a book on this, or have a skincare line, or write a book on health, beauty, and fitness, or do this and the other. Mm-hmm. And they'd ask me how I achieved a certain thing, and it seemed so superficial to give a short answer to that. And in the last few years, some very big things happened for me in terms of where I came in my life. When I turned 43, I got to this place where I felt like as a woman I had completely outgrown what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean outgrown it to the point of where I don't want to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. But I mean I became much more than what those could represent or what those could
So was it kind of like not outgrowing the art, but outgrowing certain aspects of the business, sort of? Is that maybe what you're saying?
It was needing another avenue to express things that had become much more important to me than my work. There was a time in my life where, being a musician, being a singer, a performer, a dancer, an actor was a way for me to explore and express myself as a young woman coming up. I got to experience many lifetimes in one through these various characters that I would play, through the various songs I would sing, that I would interpret. But it came to a point where it turned the other way around, where the experiences I had had in my life really were so much more than any role could encompass or any song could express. And I felt like there wasn't... I personally had become much more valuable than any of my work could represent, or any of the work that was coming to me could honor. And I felt like I needed to find a different way to express that. And so when the tsunami hit in, I think it was 2004, December of 2004, in Southeast Asia, a small group of us, mostly surfers, put together a rebel relief organization called Surf Zone Relief Operations. Okay. And we pooled our money, and we dummied up documents, and we went over to Indonesia, and we chartered our own 75 or 80-foot wooden pinisi boat, and we loaded it with goods.